The Dead Sea Scrolls and artificial intelligence. When God uses machines to speak to humanity, a whisper from the desert. Some discoveries merely enrich historical knowledge, but some shake the very foundations of humanity's spiritual life. In 1947, in the dry caves of Qumran by the Dead Sea, a shepherd boy tossed a stone into a cliffside and heard the shattering of pottery. No one imagined that sound would become a bell tolling for humanity to reconsider the very roots of its faith. Inside the ancient jars, they found scrolls of sheepskin that had slept for over 2,000 years. These fragments became known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. They contain the oldest biblical manuscripts ever discovered, alongside hymns, laws, and apocalyptic visions that generations had never seen before. For decades, scholars, theologians, and believers have debated their meaning.
What if enlightenment means
Some claim they are merely relics of an ascetic Jewish sect. Others see in them prophecies of the Messiah. Yet all agree the Dead Sea Scrolls are among the most important discoveries of the 20th century. And then stepping into the 21st century, artificial intelligence, AI, entered the research. With the ability to analyze each grain of dust, each faded mark on sheepskin, AI is slowly unveiling what the human eye cannot see. A profound question arises. Is God himself using the technology of our age to continue speaking to humanity? The historical journey of the scrolls. 1. The origins of Qumran. These scrolls are believed to have been written and hidden by the Essenes, a Jewish sect living in the desert. They believed the world was on the brink of apocalypse, and they were called to preserve God's law in purity, apart from the corruption of the Jerusalem temple. In the 11 caves of Qumran, over 900 documents were discovered, ranging from Old Testament manuscripts to texts unknown in Jewish or Christian tradition. They include prayers, laws, meditations, even war songs of light against darkness. 2. Secrets and controversy. From the very beginning, the scrolls stirred division. Some scholars sought to keep them locked away for private study. Rumors spread that the church was hiding them because they contained something dangerous to Christian faith. Only toward the end of the 20th century, when research rights were expanded, were the texts gradually released. Even then, most manuscripts remained as fragments broken into pieces too small to form full sentences. Scholars estimated it would take centuries to reassemble them. At this point, AI arrived as a craftsman from the future, piecing together the shards. The age of secrecy and echoes in the dark. 1. Passages that stunned scholars. Among the texts are references to a righteous one. A son of light, a teacher of justice, phrases that evoke Christ and his disciples.
I agree.
Scholars debate, but believers recognize familiar echoes. There are descriptions of a final battle between the children of light and the children of darkness. The imagery mirrors the Gospel of John. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. 2. The long silence. For decades, ordinary people had little access to the scrolls. Many questions lingered. If they truly contained prophecy of the Messiah, why did God allow them to remain hidden for 2 millennia? Perhaps the time was not yet ripe. Perhaps only now, in the age of technology, would God unseal the mystery. When artificial intelligence enters. 1. New eyes for ancient texts. Many scrolls survive only as fingertip-sized fragments, the ink faded to smoke. Human vision cannot read them. But AI, through machine learning algorithms, can analyze ink patterns, the curvature of fibers, even the handwriting of individual scribes. AI has revealed that multiple scribes worked on the same scroll, something the human eye missed. It has also reconstructed fragments once thought meaningless into coherent sentences. 2. When data becomes revelation. I is not a theologian, yet the data it reveals draws humanity closer to mystery. Once letters reappear and sentences align, theological resonance emerges. For instance, AI reconstructed passages describing Essene rituals, purification prayer, and the sharing of bread and wine. The imagery recalls the Eucharist instituted by Christ. Theological echoes from the scrolls. 1. Prophecies of the Messiah. Many texts speak of one who will come to deliver the people, a righteous king, or an eternal priest. Though they do not name Jesus directly, the light of the gospel shines through them. 2. Light and darkness. A document known as the War Scroll depicts the ultimate battle of the children of light against the children of darkness. The imagery echoes all the way to the New Testament's book of Revelation. 3. Preparing the way for the gospel. Scholars conclude that the Dead Sea Scrolls provide the cultural and spiritual backdrop to Christ's time. When the Gospels proclaim that the Word became flesh, Qumran had already sown fierce longing for the one who was to come. Controversy and mystery. Not everyone accepts these interpretations. Some warn that overconnection distorts history. Yet from a faith perspective, the scrolls may be read as a whisper preparing for the gospel. Strikingly, it is AI, a product of modern science, that has become the tool to open this mystery. Could it be that God is showing humanity that he can use anything, even seemingly lifeless technology, to proclaim his word? The scrolls and the church. The context of Jesus' time. The scrolls illuminate first-century Judaism, its expectations, its hunger for justice, its apocalyptic fears. This context enriches our understanding of Christ's mission. 2. Enriching faith. The scrolls do not replace the Gospels. Rather, they show the soil from which the gospel grew. They clarify the face of Christ, the one longed for by Israel, and the answer to humanity's deepest yearning. AI as an instrument of providence. I is no accident. As Scripture says, if they keep silent, the stones will cry out. Luke 19:40. Today, not only stones, but machines themselves cry out. We often fear technology will alienate us from God. Yet through the scrolls, we see the opposite. Technology can be a bridge. AI, instead of serving only commerce, is now serving revelation. The message for humanity today. The Dead Sea Scrolls do not only speak of the past. They proclaim to the present, faith can be buried for thousands of years. Yet in God's time, it rises again. God can use any medium to reveal his love, even artificial intelligence. We are living in a decisive moment. Light and darkness still wage war, but final victory is assured in Christ. When the scrolls speak, long ago in Qumran, trembling hands wrote and hid these scrolls, hoping one day someone would find and understand. Today, AI is piecing together each letter so that humanity may once again hear the desert's whisper. The question is no longer, is it real? But how will you respond? The scrolls speak of the righteous one. The gospel proclaims, he has come, has died, and has risen. AI is merely a bridge to help us hear more clearly. But in the end, only faith leads us to encounter the one to whom the scrolls point. The Shroud of Turin, Jonathan Rumi, Divine Mystery and the Face of Christ. A testimony wrapped in linen. There are relics that rest quietly in museums. Relics that whisper of ancient empires and forgotten wars. But then, there are relics that defy history itself. Relics that look back at you and seem to ask a question of your soul. The Shroud of Turin belongs to this latter category. A simple piece of linen stretching over 14 feet in length, yet imprinted with the faint image of a crucified man. For centuries, pilgrims have stood before it, trembling, wondering, could this be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ? Jonathan Rumi, the actor known worldwide for portraying Jesus in The Chosen, recently spoke about this sacred mystery. In his words, the shroud does not merely belong to history, nor even to the church as artifact. It belongs to Christ himself, and through him it belongs to every soul who seeks him. Rumi's testimony adds a modern voice to a centuries-old dialogue between faith and doubt, mystery and reason, science and revelation. The shroud, like Rumi's portrayal of Christ, carries an uncanny power. It is not only an object to be studied, it is an encounter to be lived. To gaze upon its image is to stand on holy ground where the silence of linen speaks louder than sermons, and where the faint marks of blood become verses of a gospel written without ink. This article will explore the Shroud of Turin not merely as history, but as spiritual event. We will walk through its mysterious journey across centuries, its confrontations with science, its resonance in the faith of millions, and its echo in the words of Jonathan Rumi. Most of all, we will ask, what does this shroud reveal about Christ and about ourselves? The shroud's mysterious journey through time. The shroud is no ordinary cloth. Its history is a tale woven with secrecy, devotion, fire, and survival, almost as if the fabric itself resists oblivion. 1.1 Edessa, the hidden cloth. The earliest whispers of the shroud point to Edessa, a city once nestled in Mesopotamia. Ancient tradition speaks of a mysterious cloth known as the mandelion, said to bear the face of Christ, not made by human hands. Was this the same shroud folded so only the visage was visible? Many historians and believers think so. Whether or not the mandelion and the shroud are identical, the story suggests that from the earliest centuries, Christians guarded an image they believed carried the presence of Christ himself. 1.2 Constantinople relic of empire. By the 6th century, records tell of such a cloth venerated in Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Pilgrims wrote of gazing upon an image of the crucified Christ, etched not by pigment, but by mystery. The emperors themselves paraded the cloth as a shield of the city, a relic believed to protect against invasion and disaster. Yet history is cruel. During the Fourth Crusade in 1204, the city was looted, and the cloth vanished from imperial sight. Where did it go? Into the shadows of Europe, carried perhaps by knights who did not understand what they held, or hidden by hands that knew all too well. 1.3 Lyre and the first public display. The shroud re-emerged in the 14th century in the French village of Lyre. A small church displayed the linen to crowds who wept and prayed before its ghostly figure. From the beginning, it drew both devotion and controversy. Some hailed it as the burial cloth of Christ. Others, skeptical clergy included, questioned its origins. Yet devotion only grew. People walked barefoot for miles to see it, to kneel before it, to let their tears soak the earth beneath it. 1.4 Fires and survival in Turin. Eventually, the shroud passed into the hands of the House of Savoy and was moved to Turin, Italy, where it has remained for centuries. Here, too, it faced trials. In 1532, a fire broke out in the chapel where it was stored. Flames melted part of the reliquary, and molten silver dripped onto the folded cloth, leaving a series of symmetrical burns that scar it to this day. And yet, astonishingly, the image itself was spared, as if the fire could touch the edges, but not the mystery. Through wars, revolutions, and skepticism, the shroud endured. Today it rests in Turin's Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, rarely displayed, guarded with solemn care. And still, every time it is shown, millions flock to behold it, as though drawn by an unseen magnet. 1.5 The linen that refuses to fade. What is it about this cloth that makes it so indestructible, not only physically but spiritually? Fires have licked its edges, critics have dismissed it, scientists have tested it, yet it refuses to vanish. Instead, with every century, its presence grows stronger. Like the voice of Christ himself, it cannot be silenced. Jonathan Rumi touched on this when he said, "It belongs to Jesus." In other words, The shroud cannot be claimed by skeptics or devotees by emperors or scientists. It resists ownership because it is not property. It is testimony, and testimony belongs not to those who guard it, but to the one it reveals. Jonathan Rumi's testimony, a modern voice among ancient echoes. Jonathan Rumi has become for millions the most recognizable face of Jesus in our generation. Through his role in The Chosen, he has not only portrayed Christ with dignity and humanity, but has also inspired viewers to rediscover their faith. When Rumi speaks about the Shroud of Turin, therefore his words carry a weight beyond celebrity. They come from an artist who has stepped, however imperfectly, into the sandals of the Savior. 2.1. Encountering the mystery. Rumi described the shroud as something that belongs to Jesus. For him, it is not just an ancient artifact, nor even a relic to be guarded by the church. It is a mirror of Christ's passion, a window into his suffering, and a silent proclamation of his resurrection. Rumi, who has spent years meditating on the agony and mercy of Christ through his performance, sees in the shroud not history's puzzle, but faith's answer. He once remarked that standing before the shroud is like standing at Calvary itself. The faint blood stains speak louder than any dialogue, and the bruised face, hidden in linen, looks back at you with a question, "Who do you say that I am?" For Rumi, the shroud is not meant to end debate. It is meant to awaken the heart. 2. The shroud and the actor's burden. Portraying Jesus is a task few actors dare to take on. Rumi has spoken often of the spiritual weight he feels, the fear of misrepresenting Christ, the challenge of embodying both tenderness and majesty, and the constant awareness that his performance can never capture the fullness of the divine. Yet when he reflects on the shroud, he finds consolation. The face in the shroud, he says, is the true performance, the one that speaks without words. For an actor used to cameras, scripts, and rehearsals, the shroud offers something radically different: authenticity, beyond artistry. It reminds him and us that Jesus' suffering was not staged. It was real. The nails pierced, the thorns tore, the blood spilled. No reenactment, however moving, can equal the silent sermon preached by that linen. 2.3. The shroud as personal call. Rumi insists that the shroud is not merely about Jesus 2,000 years ago. It is about us today. When he says it belongs to Jesus, he means that it belongs to the ongoing mission of Christ in the world, to call each heart to conversion, to forgiveness, to surrender. To stand before the shroud is to be invited into the story, to realize that his wounds were born for you. In this sense, Rumi joins a long line of witnesses, saints, mystics, pilgrims, popes, all who have looked upon the shroud and felt it look back at them. His voice is modern, but the echo is ancient.
With this offering,
The linen, centuries old, still
guidance
speaks
and
today.
wisdom.
Science and mystery. The shroud resists. Explanation. For centuries, scientists, historians, and skeptics have tried to solve the riddle of the shroud. How was the image made? When was the cloth woven? Could it be a forgery? A medieval trick designed to inspire devotion or profit? Yet the more the shroud is studied, the more mysterious it becomes. 3.1. The negative image of 1898. In 1898, Italian photographer Secondo Pia took the first photographs of the shroud. When he developed the plates, he nearly dropped them in shock. The faint, ghostly figure on the cloth appeared in stunning detail. In the negative image, the bruised face, the scourged body, the rivulets of blood. It was as though the cloth had been waiting for modern eyes to reveal its depth. A medieval forger could never have conceived of such a phenomenon centuries before photography existed. This discovery sparked a century of investigation. Scientists analyzed the fibers, chemists tested the stains, forensic experts studied the wounds. Each discipline brought insights, but none offered a final explanation. 3.2. The blood of the crucified chemical tests confirmed that the reddish stains on the shroud were not paint or pigment, but real human blood. More precisely, blood of type AB, rare globally, but common in the Middle East. Forensic analysis of the flows showed consistency with wounds inflicted by Roman crucifixion nails through the wrists, scourging marks across the back, and blood trails on the forehead consistent with a crown of thorns. Skeptics asked, could a medieval artist really have known such anatomical detail centuries before forensic science? Could he have depicted blood flows exactly as they would appear on a crucified man? The evidence pushed back against skepticism, leaving more questions than answers. 3. The carbon dating controversy. In 1988, 3 laboratories performed radiocarbon dating on a sample of the cloth. The results pointed to the Middle Ages, suggesting a date between 1260 and 1390. Newspapers blared, "Shroud proven a fake." Yet almost immediately, problems emerged. The sample tested came from a corner of the cloth that had been repaired after the 1532 fire woven with newer threads. Contamination from centuries of handling also skewed results. Later studies using more advanced methods suggested the linen fibers themselves could indeed be much older, possibly consistent with the 1st century. Thus, the controversy remains unresolved. But even if carbon dating raises doubts, other evidence pollen from ancient Palestine limestone dust matching Jerusalem. The impossibility of reproducing the image keeps the mystery alive. 3.4. Light, not paint. The most baffling aspect of the shroud is the image itself. Microscopic analysis shows no pigment, no brushstrokes, no dye. The coloration rests only on the outermost fibrils of the fabric, thinner than a human hair. It does not penetrate below the surface. It is as if the fibers themselves were scorched not by fire, but by light. Scientists have speculated about ultraviolet radiation, even bursts of energy unknown to physics. But the simplest explanation remains the most astonishing. Perhaps in the moment of resurrection, a burst of divine light imprinted the image on the cloth. As one researcher put it, the shroud is not the record of death. It is the snapshot of the resurrection. 3.5. The role of AI. In recent years, artificial intelligence has scanned the shroud, enhancing details invisible to the naked eye. The bruises became clearer, the contours of the body more defined. 3-dimensional reconstructions emerged, showing a man of Middle Eastern build tortured and crucified. Yet even with AI, the essential question remains unanswered. How did the image form? Technology sharpens the mystery, but cannot dissolve it. As Rumi himself suggested, the shroud is not meant to be explained away. It is meant to confront us with the reality of Christ's passion and resurrection. Theology of the Shroud. A gospel written in cloth. The Shroud of Turin is not simply an artifact of devotion. It is in many ways a silent theology. Its fibers preach without words, carrying truths that theologians have articulated for centuries. If the Gospels are written testimonies, the shroud may be considered a visual gospel, a 5th testimony, composed in blood and light. 4.1. Good Friday imprinted.
Page 42.
At first glance, the shroud is a record of Good Friday.
Only in this chapter.
The scourging wounds match the Roman flagrum, a whip tipped with bone or metal designed to tear flesh. The rivulets of blood across the forehead testify to the crown of thorns. The puncture near the side corresponds to the soldier's lance. The bent knees, the collapsed body, the rigor of death all confirm what the evangelists wrote. He was crucified dead and buried. In this sense, the shroud is the closest thing we possess to a photograph of Christ's passion. Not staged, not interpreted, but imprinted. Every wound is a word, every stain a sentence, every fold a verse in the gospel of suffering love. 4.2. Easter Sunday encoded. But the shroud does not end with Good Friday. Its greatest mystery lies not in the marks of death, but in the inexplicable image that hovers above them. No human hand created it. No known natural process accounts for it. It is as though, in the very moment of resurrection, the cloth bore witness to the burst of glory. Theologians call this the light of Tabor, the same divine radiance that once transfigured Christ on the mountain, now erupting in full force, illuminating the dark tomb and branding the cloth with the face of eternity. The shroud thus becomes the bridge between Friday and Sunday, between the silence of the grave and the song of life. 4.3. The New Adam and the New Creation. Christian theology often compares Christ to Adam. In Eden, Adam's disobedience brought death into the world. In Gethsemane and on Calvary, Christ's obedience restored life. The shroud echoes this theology visually. The stains of blood recall the garden of sin, but the radiant image speaks of the garden of resurrection. Thus, the shroud is not merely about a dead man. It is about the rebirth of humanity. It testifies that sin's grip was broken, that death's dominion was undone. As St. Paul wrote, "Death, where is your sting, grave? Where is your victory?" 1 Cor 15:55. The answer is woven into the linen itself, spiritual symbolism, the face of God in the fabric. If the shroud were only a forensic puzzle, it would be fascinating, but not transformative. Its true power lies in its symbolism, the way it draws the believer into mystery, the way it turns cloth into icon, the way it allows humanity to gaze upon divinity. 5.1. The face that looks back. Every icon in Christian tradition seeks to mediate presence. The shroud, however, goes beyond iconography. It is not painted, but imprinted. To gaze upon it is to feel gazed upon. Pilgrims throughout centuries have reported the same sensation. The eyes of the man in the shroud seem to follow not accusing, but inviting. It is as though Christ himself were whispering, "I am here." Do you believe 5.2, the silence that speaks? The shroud says nothing, and yet in its silence it speaks louder than any homily. Its quiet presence confronts the human heart with questions no skeptic can silence. What if this is real? What if he really suffered this for me? What if the resurrection is not myth, but memory? Jonathan Rumi described this as the mystery of presence. For him, the shroud is not about proving or disproving. It is about standing in front of a silence so dense it becomes a voice. The linen becomes a pulpit. The stains become sacraments. 5.3. Light in darkness. In a world saturated with images, billboards, screens, endless photographs, the shroud remains unique. It is an image not produced by human ambition, but by divine humility. It does not sell, it does not advertise, it does not entertain. It reveals. It stands as light in darkness, a beacon reminding humanity that the central event of history is not empire, not invention, not conquest, but a man crucified, buried, and risen. 5.4. Belonging to Christ alone. Finally, Rumi's words echo again. It belongs to Jesus. The shroud resists every attempt to turn it into mere relic scientific curiosity or tourist attraction. It demands reverence because it belongs not to us, but to the one it reveals. And in belonging to him, it calls us to belong to him as well. To touch the shroud with faith is to touch the hem of Christ's garment, as the woman did in the gospel, who was healed by her belief. The shroud is not magic, but it is mystery. And mystery, when embraced, becomes transformation. The shroud's call to humanity. The Shroud of Turin is not content to be admired as a relic. It does not permit us to remain neutral. To look upon it is to feel summoned. 6.1. The universal question. The shroud confronts every heart with the same question Jesus asked his disciples. Who do you say that I am? For some, it is dismissed as clever forgery. For others, it is fascinating archaeology. But for those who allow themselves to be pierced by its gaze, the shroud is the face of Christ, asking for faith. Jonathan Rumi expressed this call with urgency. The shroud is not simply proof for historians, but invitation for souls. It belongs to Jesus, he said, meaning that its ultimate purpose is not to rest in a cathedral vault, but to lead hearts back to the living God. 6.2. Healing through wounds. The irony of the shroud is profound. It is covered in wounds, yet it heals. The image is bruised, scourged, bloodied, yet those who contemplate it find peace. The very sight of pain becomes the channel of comfort. The very vision of death becomes the seed of hope. This is the paradox of Christianity. By his wounds we are healed. The shroud carries this truth not as doctrine, but as demonstration. To stand before it is to feel one's own wounds, sins and griefs absorbed into the fabric of redemption. 6.3. The shroud in a secular age. In our world saturated with skepticism and cynicism, the shroud shines brighter. It does not demand blind faith, but invites honest searching. It whispers into the noise of a digital age, I am still here. Look closer. Believe. Even artificial intelligence scanning every thread cannot exhaust the mystery. Instead of disproving it, deepens. The closer science looks, the more the shroud slips beyond explanation. In a time when humanity believes it can master everything, the shroud humbles us. It reminds us that some truths are not conquered by reason, but received in reverence. A sacred icon for the end times. Many mystics have spoken of the shroud as a relic for the last days, a sign preserved through centuries for a generation that doubts everything. Whether or not this prophecy is literal, the symbolism is powerful. 7.1. A silent witness. In an age where words are twisted, the shroud does not argue. It simply is. Its silence is its strength. No debate, no manifesto, no polemic could equal the quiet testimony of that bruised face looking back through time. 7.2. Belonging to the whole world. Though it rests in Turin, the shroud belongs to no single city, nation, or church. If it belongs to Jesus, then it belongs to the whole world he died to save. Every pilgrim who kneels before it represents not only their own soul, but the longing of humanity for truth, for love, for God. 7.3. A mirror for our age. The shroud mirrors not only Christ's suffering, but our own. In its bruised features, we see the face of refugees, the poor, the oppressed, the victims of violence. We see the wounds of our century imprinted anew. And in its radiant mystery, we see the promise that beyond all suffering, resurrection waits. The face of Christ in linen. At the end of all studies, debates, and pilgrimages, one truth remains. The shroud belongs to Jesus. Not to scientists, not to skeptics, not to collectors, not even to the church as artifact. It belongs to him whose image it bears, him who died and rose, him who is alive forevermore. Jonathan Rumi's testimony reminds us of this truth. As the man who portrays Jesus for millions, he points not to himself, but to the cloth that points beyond itself. The shroud is not about Jonathan Rumi, not even about Turin. It is about the eternal Christ, the God who entered history, who embraced suffering, who transfigured death into life. To stand before the shroud is to be drawn into that mystery. To look upon its image is to feel looked upon. To hear its silence is to hear the whisper of eternity.
Look at the energy reading.
Do you believe?
That's impossible.
And so across centuries, the shroud continues its mission.
Sequence again.
Fires could not consume it. Skeptics could not silence it. Science could not explain it. It endures because it is not simply fabric. It is testimony. It is gospel. It is icon. It is relic. Most of all, it is encounter. An encounter with the God who became man, with the man who became wounded, with the wounds that became our healing. In the end, perhaps the shroud was given for us, this skeptical, restless generation, not to remove the need for faith, but to awaken it. Not to erase doubt, but to plant a seed of wonder. Not to prove God, but to invite us into His presence. The shroud waits. Its faint image, fragile yet indestructible, continues to gaze upon humanity. And in that gaze, we hear the words, Rumi echoed, "It belongs to Jesus." And because it belongs to Him, it calls us to belong to Him too. The mystery of 3 days. Mel Gibson and the silence after the cross. The forgotten hours of salvation history often rushes from Friday to Sunday. Christians around the world proclaim with passion, Christ has died. Christ is risen. Yet hidden between these two proclamations lies a silence that is just as important, the mysterious hours of Saturday, the day when heaven seemed closed, the earth trembled in despair, and the Son of God lay in the tomb. For centuries, theologians, mystics, and artists have pondered this forgotten space in time. What happened in those 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection? Why does Scripture speak so little yet leave the imagination burning with questions? Was it simply the stillness of death, or was something far greater unfolding beyond human sight? Mel Gibson, known for his bold cinematic vision in The Passion of the Christ, has often returned to this enigma. For him, the silence after the cross is not an empty pause. It is the hidden battlefield of salvation, a descent into the depths of human despair and a rising toward eternal victory. Just as his films capture both agony and transcendence, so too, this mystery blends horror with hope, silence with song, death with life. This article will explore the sacred journey of those 3 days. From the bloody hill of Calvary, to the tomb sealed in silence from Christ's descent into the realm of the dead, to the radiant dawn of Easter, we will enter the mystery that Mel Gibson and generations of believers have sought to illuminate. And in doing so, we may discover that the 3 days are not simply history, but a mirror of our own lives, our suffering, our waiting, and our resurrection. Friday of blood, the cross, and the sacrifice. The story begins on a hill outside Jerusalem. Roman soldiers hammer nails into wood crowds, mock, and the sky itself grows dark at midday. The Gospels describe this moment with haunting simplicity. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. Mark 15:37. For his disciples, it was the collapse of everything they had hoped for. The Messiah who healed the sick, raised the dead, and spoke of God's kingdom, now hung powerless, suffocating on a cross. Dreams of liberation turned to dust. Peter wept in shame, John clung to the Virgin Mary, and Mary Magdalene's tears fell at the foot of the cross. And yet, hidden within this spectacle of violence was the heart of God's plan. Mel Gibson's The Passion dared to portray this not as tragedy alone, but as sacrifice. Every lash of the scourge, every drop of blood, every gasp of breath became an offering. Like the Passover lamb whose blood marked the doors of Israel, Christ's blood marked the world with redemption.
Are these projections
The cross is both horror and hope.
or is this based purely
It reveals the cruelty of humanity and the mercy of God. In Gibson's vision, the camera never flinched from the brutality, because to sanitize the cross is to weaken its truth. Salvation came not through avoidance of suffering, but through entering it fully. The wood of execution became the altar of eternal love.
shows no anomalies at this
As the body of Christ was taken down and wrapped in linen, silence began to settle. The crowd dispersed, the soldiers returned to barracks, and the disciples hid in fear. Friday ended not with triumph, but with a sealed tomb. The King of Glory lay still, and the world waited in dreadful quiet. Saturday of silence. When heaven holds its breath. If Friday is remembered with grief and Sunday with joy, Saturday is often forgotten. Yet in many ways, it is the most human day of all. It is the day of waiting, of not knowing, of despairing, when God seems absent. The Gospels give us almost nothing about this day. Matthew notes only that the chief priests requested a guard for the tomb. Luke tells us the women rested according to the Sabbath.
Immediately.
Beyond that silence, heaven does not speak, earth does not move. The Son of God lies motionless, and his followers are left with unanswered questions. For the disciples, Saturday was unbearable. Their leader was gone, their hopes crushed, their future uncertain. Peter remembered his denial and wept in guilt. Thomas doubted whether anything had ever been real. Mary, the mother of sorrows, kept vigil in her heart, holding on to promises she barely understood. Mel Gibson once reflected that this silence is terrifying precisely because it feels so real. Every believer has lived a Saturday, a time when prayers seem unheard, when grief outweighs faith, when God appears to be asleep. Saturday is the day when heaven holds its breath, and we are left to wonder if hope has died. And yet within this silence, something was happening. Though the disciples could not see it, Christ was not idle. While his body lay in the tomb, his spirit was moving into realms unseen. Ancient Christian tradition proclaims he descended into hell, into the realm of the dead, to break open its gates. The silence of earth concealed the thunder of heaven. The harrowing of hell, Christ descends into darkness. While the world above lay silent, the realm below trembled. Christian tradition holds that the crucifixion was not the end of Christ's work, but the beginning of his most mysterious mission, the descent into hell. 3. 1. What does it mean to descend? The Apostles' Creed contains a line that many recite without pause. He descended into hell. But what does this mean? Early Christians did not imagine Jesus descending to the place of eternal damnation, but to Sheol, the shadowy realm of the dead, where the righteous and unrighteous alike awaited redemption. From Adam and Eve to Abraham and Sarah, from Moses to David, from prophets to the nameless faithful. All who died before Christ lingered in a twilight existence. They were not in torment, but neither were they in glory. They waited for the one who would shatter the gates of death. 3.2. Ancient icons of victory. In the art of the Eastern Church, the descent into hell is one of the most glorious images of Christ. He is shown standing on the broken doors of Hades, reaching down to lift Adam and Eve from their graves. Chains and locks lie shattered at his feet. Demons scatter in terror. Behind him, a flood of light pours into the darkness. This is no quiet scene. It is a cosmic battle. Christ does not sneak into hell. He storms it. His wounds are still visible, but now they shine like weapons of divine fire. In dying, he has defeated death. In entering the grave, he has emptied it of its power. 3.3. Mel Gibson's vision of the descent. Mel Gibson has hinted that if he completes a sequel to The Passion of the Christ, the descent into hell will be its centerpiece. For him, this is the hidden climax of salvation history. Calvary shows the cost of love, but the descent shows its victory. Gibson imagines this descent not as myth, but as terrifying reality. Picture Christ stepping into the abyss, surrounded by the screams of the damned and the shadows of despair. Yet wherever he walks, light erupts. The abyss that swallowed humanity now swallows God himself, and in doing so bursts open in defeat. In Gibson's cinematic vision, the descent would not be silent. It would resound with the echo of chains snapping, gates breaking, and the first cries of the redeemed. It would be both horrifying and glorious, the Lamb who was slain becoming the Lion who conquers. 3.4. Theology of liberation. Theologically, the descent reveals that no corner of creation is beyond Christ's reach. He did not simply die for the living, he also redeemed the dead. The Good Shepherd went even into the valley of shadows to find his lost sheep. Saint Ephrem the Syrian once wrote, "Death slew him by means of the body, which he assumed, but that same body proved to be the weapon with which he conquered death." Death slew and was slain. This is the paradox of Holy Saturday. To the disciples above ground, it looked like defeat. But in the unseen depths, it was triumph. Death itself was being undone from the inside. 3. 5. A cosmic earthquake. Imagine the scene: the patriarchs rising from their graves, prophets recognizing the one they foretold, Adam and Eve grasping the hands of their Redeemer. The echoes of this victory ripple not only through history, but into eternity. The descent into hell is not a footnote. It is the moment when every story of faith converges. All of human history, from the first garden to the final tomb, is gathered into Christ's hands. He who lay lifeless in the sepulchre is at the same time alive in the realm of the dead, setting captives free. Resurrection, the eternal dawn. When the Sabbath ended and the first light of dawn broke on Sunday morning, the silence shattered. The stone that sealed the tomb had been rolled away, and what once held death now echoed with life. 4.1. The empty tomb. The Gospels describe the moment with remarkable restraint. Mary Magdalene arrived while it was still dark. She expected to find sorrow to anoint a corpse. Instead, she found absence. The body was gone, and with it, her last comfort. At first, despair deepened. Yet this absence was not theft, but miracle. The angel's words still resound through history. "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen." Luke 24:5-6. The tomb was not simply empty. It had become the birthplace of eternal hope. 4.2. The earthquake of joy. In contrast to Friday's earthquake of sorrow, Easter brings an earthquake of joy. The earth shakes not in grief, but in glory. Soldiers collapse like dead men before the light of heaven. The women run from the tomb, hearts pounding with terror and awe. The disciples, slow to believe, eventually find themselves face to face with the risen Lord. Resurrection is not a metaphor. It is not a vague survival of memory or a spiritual continuation. It is bodily, historical, cosmic. Christ's wounds remain, but now they radiate life. Death has been broken not symbolically, but in reality. 4.3. Mel Gibson's cinematic resurrection. Mel Gibson has often hinted at how he envisions this moment. If the Passion of the Christ revealed the depths of suffering, its sequel will show the explosion of glory. For him, the resurrection is not simply dawn breaking on a quiet garden, but light detonating across creation. Imagine it cinematically. The stone quivers, a burst of radiance fills the chamber. The grave clothes collapse as if the body has evaporated into glory. Angels bow in awe, and the first breath of the risen Christ resounds like thunder across eternity. Gibson sees this not as embellishment, but as the only fitting portrayal of the greatest event in history. 4.4. Theology of new creation. The resurrection is more than a miracle. It is the beginning of a new creation. St. Paul proclaims, "If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, behold, the new has come." Sect Cor 5:17. On Easter morning, the laws of nature themselves were rewritten. Death, the universal sentence of humanity, lost its dominion. Life triumphed, not temporarily, but eternally. Christ did not simply return to earthly existence. He entered into a glorified state, the firstborn of the new humanity. In him, every wound finds healing, every sorrow finds joy, every grave becomes a doorway. The resurrection is not only about Jesus, it is about us. His victory is the promise of ours. 4.5. Resurrection and our longing. In a world scarred by despair, war, and mortality, the resurrection is the ultimate contradiction. It declares that hope is not naive, but stronger than despair. It insists that suffering is not final, that death is not the last word. For the disciples, the resurrection turned cowards into martyrs, doubters into evangelists, grief into unstoppable joy. For us today, it offers the same transformation every Saturday of our lives. Every silence, every unanswered prayer, every season of despair is destined to give way to the dawn of Easter. 4.6. The Eternal Dawn. Easter morning is not simply an event of the past. It is the eternal dawn that illuminates all of time. Each Mass, each prayer, each act of faith is a participation in that sunrise. As St. Augustine wrote, "We are Easter people, and Alleluia is our song." The resurrection is God's definitive answer to the silence of Saturday. It is His thunderous yes to humanity's desperate questions. It is the promise that light always pierces darkness, that life always follows death, that love always conquers. The 3 days as our journey. The mystery of the 3 days is not only history, it is the map of every human soul. Each of us in our own lives walks through a kind of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 1. Our Fridays of suffering. We all know the experience of Friday, the moments when life wounds us, when betrayal cuts deep, when suffering feels unbearable. These are the days of blood and tears when faith is tested and God seems distant. For some, it is the loss of a loved one. For others, it is illness, injustice, or rejection. The cross reminds us that we are not alone in these Fridays. Christ has already carried them. Every cry of pain finds an echo in His. Every wound finds its twin in His wounds. The crucifixion teaches us that God does not watch suffering from a distance. He enters it, shares it, redeems it. 5.2. Our Saturdays of silence. Perhaps even harder than suffering is silence. Saturday represents those long stretches when prayers seem unanswered, when heaven feels empty, when despair whispers that hope is foolish. These are the seasons of waiting, of uncertainty, of doubt. And yet, as the descent into hell shows us, Saturday is not inactivity. While we wait, God works in hidden ways. While we mourn, He breaks chains unseen. Saturday invites us to trust not in what we feel, but in what He promises. Faith is born not in certainty, but in the silence of waiting. 5.3. Our Sundays of resurrection, and then sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, Sunday comes. Light pierces darkness, healing breaks through, joy rises from the ashes. For some, it is the miracle of recovery. For others, it is the quiet strength to endure. For all, it is the promise of eternal life that no suffering can erase. Resurrection is not only a future event, it is a present reality. Each act of forgiveness is a resurrection. Each conversion of heart, each reconciliation, each victory of love over hate is a taste of Easter morning. 5.4. Mel Gibson's insight for today. Mel Gibson has often said that the story of Christ is not locked in the past, but alive today. His cinematic vision is not about creating art alone, but about awakening souls. For him, the 3 days are the pattern of every believer's life. When he speaks of Christ's silence, he is speaking to our own. When he imagines the descent into hell, he is reminding us that no darkness is too deep for God's light. When he envisions the resurrection as a cosmic explosion of glory, he is calling us to live with hope that transforms despair. The eternal mystery of 3 days. The 3 days between the cross and the resurrection are the axis of history. They are also the axis of every life. Friday reveals God's solidarity with our suffering. Saturday reveals His hidden work in silence. Sunday reveals his victory that cannot be undone. Mel Gibson's reflections remind us that these are not distant events, but living realities. The Passion shows us the price of love. The Descent shows us the reach of love. The Resurrection shows us the triumph of love. We rush from Good Friday to Easter Sunday, but we must not forget the silence in between. For in that silence, salvation was already unfolding. In that waiting, hope was already being born. In that descent, victory was already assured. And so when we face our own Fridays of pain, our own Saturdays of silence, we hold on to the promise of Sunday. The stone will roll away. The dawn will come. The risen one will speak our name as he spoke to Mary Magdalene, and we will know that death is defeated forever. This is the eternal mystery of the 3 days, not merely past, but present. Not merely Christ's, but ours. And as long as we walk through suffering, silence, and hope, we walk with him, the crucified, the silent, the risen Lord.